Hello everybody, Steve the Amateur Historian. How are you all doing today? I'm in kind of the Slabtown area, trying to get myself to 21st and Thurman. I'm at 21st and Pettygrove, so I'm very close. And I got here for your viewing pleasure. Fresh episode, Historic Murders of Portland. Right this way. Alright, my apologies, we're probably getting a lot of wind. I'm coming up to 21st and Thurman, and as far as I know, the building is supposed to still be here, but I am not seeing it, unless it's around the corner of this big building. Because it would have been, the address would today translate to 2090 Thurman Street. So it would be just this side of 21st. But I am not seeing it. I want to say I remember the building still being here. But it looks like I may just be out of my mind. Because we're at Thurman and 21st. And I'm really perplexed. Because I swear when I checked 21st and Thurman, it looks nothing like this. Because it's a little bit more Old County. You go this way, and that's how I remember it looking. But there's just this building, which is fairly new, and this building, which is kind of new, but not really, like newer-ish compared to older stuff. And I swear, building was still here. It was a tall, thin building that the couple in question lived in upstairs and ran a store down on the first floor. What is happening? Wait, it's Thurman, right? It has to be Thurman. I'm having a Mandela effect right now. So yeah, at the time the address was 676 Thurman Street. It's now 2090 Northwest Thurman, intersection of 21st and Thurman. So it would be just this side of 21st. So I don't know what happened. Case in point, the crime in question involved a man named August Bjorkland, who ran a store. Both he and his wife ran the store, but he more had control because it was the olden days and women couldn't be trusted to run stuff. And I want to say 2090, it would have been right over here where this building is. Or it might have been here. Again, I'm so thrown because I remember seeing the building right across the street here, so I think their store was right here. Anyway, around 10:15 a.m. on the morning of May 21st, 1920, August Bjorkland's wife walks in, shoots her husband in the temple, and he drops dead. She then turns the gun on herself and shoots herself. It's intended to be a murder-suicide. Had she lost her mind? Had she gone completely bananas? What was it? The immediate thought, which, you know, always goes to law enforcement in issues of murder-suicides that are done by a husband on a wife on a husband, one lover to another, whatever the circumstances might be. And so immediately they went to jealousy. They thought jealousy was the motivation. There was a woman by the last name of King who worked in the store that the Bjorklands ran, and authorities thought maybe she became jealous that August was paying a little too much attention to this King woman. But apparently there was a string of letters that August Bjorkland's wife wrote, and I believe her name was Fanny. Hold on, it was some interesting name like that. Bear with me. The wind. Frankie Bjorkland was the wife's name. Fanny. That was close. Started with the right letter. At least I'm getting something right. But she actually, in one of these notes, she had, obviously notes she wrote before the shooting happened. She obviously acknowledged that people thought she was jealous of this King woman, because she wrote specifically in a letter that no, she wasn't threatened by Miss King. Miss King wasn't who she was worried about, but she did believe that her husband was fooling around. But her husband was fooling around with a woman who she only penned as Miss Wallingford. Now, in the information I went through, I found no other references to a woman who went by the last name of Wallingford anywhere, so I don't know if this is just a random woman that they knew, that her husband knew, that he may or may not have gotten romantically mixed up with. But it seems Frankie Bjorkland felt that her husband August might have been fooling around with this woman, or maybe she had an objective to steal him away. And August Bjorkland had a brother by the name of, I want to say Edward. Ernest. I can't get anything right. I keep getting the first letter right. Ernest Bjorkland, August Bjorkland's brother. Apparently, these two brothers had an inseparable bond, and as far as Frankie felt, Ernest had his hooks into August. As far as August was concerned, Ernest could do no wrong. And if Ernest suggested something, if Ernest wanted something, August just went with it. And it seems like Ernest tried going so far as to gaining part ownership of the store that they, again, I presume, was once standing behind me. And that really bothered Frankie, was that, you know, it seems like it got to the point that she felt that August was more interested in hanging out with his brother Ernest and letting his brother Ernest have influence on the store that they ran together. This was their, you know, all the money they made. Everything was from this store. And it seems it was penned in letters that she felt that Ernest was the one who was really responsible overall for things going awry. So, you know, I don't know. Maybe Frankie Bjorkland was losing her mind. It seems like she was blaming a little something on everyone and nothing on herself, even though it seems like I don't know if she really was doing anything wrong, at least up until shooting her husband. But it seems like she was bothered by this mysterious Miss Wallingford, that she was having influence in her husband's life. Maybe there was a connection. Maybe Miss Wallingford was connected to Ernest, and they were both getting their hooks into August about his business. She was pissed at Ernest because he was having a lot of influence and August was just letting it happen. But before May 21st, 1920, where this shooting occurs, there was another letter found that showed that apparently Frankie Bjorkland had just had enough. She was crushed. She probably felt her husband didn't love her anymore. They were going to lose control of their business. And it seems initially she was just going to commit suicide. So police theorized that she was probably on the morning of the 21st, she was going to take her own life. Maybe she would have been upstairs, her husband would have been down in the store, and possibly while she was preparing to do it, he showed up unexpectedly. Maybe he caught her with the gun and was like, "What the hell are you doing?" An argument could have ensued, because it stands to reason she'd be like, "I'm doing this because you did this and that and Ernest this and Wallingford that and King that and August, you son of a bitch." maybe a argument broke out, a scuffle. You know, you have this woman who seems to be coming completely apart if she's sitting upstairs contemplating her own suicide, and possibly amidst that wealth of emotion, she ended up shooting her husband and then decided to carry out with her plan. Problem was, you know, the only person in this dynamic who wanted to die was Frankie Bjorkland. Well, she shoots her husband point blank in the head. He drops dead. She survives her wounds. So not only does she not pull off the suicide that she's been, well, striving to do, she managed to successfully kill her husband and not kill herself. She shoots him in the temple, shoots herself in the chest. Seems like should have been a pretty quick 1-2 killing. But she survives. So not only has she not successfully committed suicide, as was her objective, now she's alive and could be subject to prosecution for first-degree murder. Maybe if you consider her emotional state, you know, you could try to make a plea of insanity or plea it down to something else. She didn't kill him because she wanted to kill him. She killed him because she was having a manic moment, and he may or may not have been helping issues. And again, it's just a theory that this, because the letters say she planned on committing suicide, so the fact that she ended up committing murder and then attempting suicide makes people think something had to have gone awry. Something had to have been amiss. And it seemed kind of unlikely that she would try to commit suicide with her husband just standing there unless she really wanted to make a point to him. And of course, you know, she's rushed to the hospital, and as she, you know, comes back around and realizes, you know, her husband's dead, she shot him, and now the police have some questions for her. Frankie Bjorkland immediately starts to play the, oh, I never shot my husband, even though there was all these things, all these cues potentially tying her to it. But now suddenly, you know, it was supposed to be easy. She was supposed to just kill herself. And then when she killed him, it's like, well, I'm killing myself anyway, so, I mean, what difference does it make? But now she's alive, and she has to address her actions. I mean, the whole thing's crazy. It's obviously a murder-suicide. Authorities show up. They find the husband dead, the wife there potentially dying. There's got to be a gun there close by. Like, one of them shot the other. You'd think if she's, you know, wants to make such an effort to suddenly defend herself, she'd be like, oh no, he wanted to shoot me and then commit suicide, even though she had letters saying she was going to commit suicide. You know, maybe she could pull it off. Maybe she could argue, oh, like, I was maybe going to commit suicide, but then he decided to do it first. We were both going to commit suicide. You know, you think she might at least try to argue. God, there's a lot of noise around here. You'd think maybe she would just try to argue. He shot me and then shot himself, so then she's the survivor of an attempted murder. But no, while she denies killing her husband, she admits that she was the responsible party for shooting herself. So dumb. How do you argue you didn't shoot your husband, but you did shoot yourself, and then you and your husband are discovered next to each other, both shot? Seemingly fatally, he shot in the head, you're shot in the chest. You aimed for his brain, then you aimed for your own heart. There was no way. There was no way that she was going to get away with that argument. It was just, so many stars would have to align in such an improbably perfect way for that to even come close to being the reality. So she really shot herself in the foot in her efforts to claim innocence. While, I don't know, maybe she thought she would get sympathy because she tried to commit suicide, but, you know, suicide in many regards is better understood today, and still frowned on by a lot of people. But back in 1920, I'm sure it was a lot more frowned upon. So I don't know if she would have really garnered any sympathy for something like that. And she would also inevitably try to put some of the blame on Ernest Bjorkland, August's brother. Again, for the reasons mentioned earlier, felt that he had overwhelming influence on August. August would do whatever he wanted, and it got to the point where she felt that even Ernest was like stealing away his attention from her. So she was trying to present herself as the probably the neglected wife who was so distraught over what happened that she decided to put a gun on herself, and yet somehow her husband just randomly ended up dead next to her. I'm surprised, with this level of insanity, I'm surprised she didn't just try to say, hey, he was in the room and I shot myself. Bullet must have gone through me and hit him too. 2 for 1. Like, honestly, I'm amazed with the way her mind was trying to reconstruct things. I'm amazed she didn't go that far with it. And of course, a coroner's inquest determined pretty quickly, I mean, it was pretty obvious what happened. They reached a presumption that this was obviously a murder / attempted suicide, or at least a manslaughter case, maybe accidental, or at least insanity, but they knew what had happened. And it's interesting, usually when I look up these cases, there's a lot of news reports from when the event happened. Obviously it's a fresh news story, and it's blood and it's murder, and it gets people's attention. And then everything goes quiet for a month until the trial begins and the convictions happen. And then there's a bunch more articles where, in my research, and I might go back and do one more run through researching all these people and seeing if I can find any more information on the case. This is one of the first cases that I looked up, so I was kind of a novice at using the database, old newspaper database that I was using. So I might find something more. I always do when I give things a second look, because the information for me trailed off in, well, let me just see here. Obviously the murder happened late May, and by June 30th she was arraigned. So about a month later she was arraigned for the trial. She pled not guilty, I'm assuming by reason of insanity at this moment, but she was indicted on June, so she was indicted June 18th, and then she pled not guilty June 30th. So by the end of June she pleads not guilty. She has a trial awaiting her. Well, that's where my information dried up, so I'm not certain how that trial went. But again, I'm going to go back and give it a look and see if I can find a little bit more information to find out how this case, this trial, Frankie Bjorkland's fate, see how it all turned out. Well, I gave it a good run through. I gave it the old college try. No more information. It's just weird, because that almost never happens, where right before the trial's about to kick off, and then suddenly the newspaper articles dry up. So I don't know what happened in the case of Frankie Bjorkland. It seems like a stretch that she'd be found guilty of first-degree murder, maybe second-degree, but probably manslaughter. They'd probably be sympathetic towards her considering her emotional state. Maybe she got off. Maybe they deemed that she was, they pled insanity. I mean, lots of times when people try to plead insanity, it's a bunch of nonsense. It's just it's a loophole almost that you try to use. You can find any reason to claim someone is insane or was insane for a matter of moments. But in this case, it seems like she really was going to end her life. She really was emotionally strained, overwhelmed, maybe feeling neglected in her time of need. Like, she may very well have been in a very distraught, messed up mental state when the shooting occurred, and maybe she did get off for it. The information is out there. I just don't know where to find it now. So I have to leave this one with a bit of a question mark. I mean, we still at least know what happened. Who did what? Who was involved with what? But aside from that, that's where we really have to leave off. So thank you again for watching this new episode of Historic Murders of Portland from up just north of downtown. And remember, as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, keep it nice, do what you do. Actually, those two sentences completely contradict each other. Don't do what you do if you're going to be a dick about it. And hit up my Patreon if you want to help me that way. Thank you in advance. And until next time, guys, thank you so much again, seriously, for watching this series. keeping me feeling motivated to keep doing these episodes. I've been doing this is like the 5th day that I've dedicated several hours to doing episodes. I'm probably going to be up to like 35 episodes total shot by the end of this day. It's just a matter of getting them all cut and uploaded. So anyway, again, thank you, and until next time, this has been Steve the Amateur Historian with another episode of Historic Murders of Portland.